What if I told you that during World War II, the US military had a top secret plan to train millions of bats to carry incendiary bombs to attack Japan? But these flying bombs ended up torching an American military base instead. Welcome to the Bat Bomb Project. A plan that sounds like a superhero movie plot, but was actually one of the most ridiculous weapon development projects in US military history. This isn't some urban legend. We're talking about a real project that cost $2 million, equivalent to $30 million today, involved top scientists, and even got personal approval from President Roosevelt. The result: the US military successfully proved that bats could indeed burn down buildings. Unfortunately, the buildings they burned down were their own. Welcome to today's wacky history. Our story begins on the 7th of December, 1941, right after Pearl Harbor. The whole country was furious and everyone wanted to do something for America. But most people were thinking about enlisting or buying war bonds, not training bats to be suicide bombers. However, one man was different. His name was Lytle Adams, a dentist and amateur inventor. This guy had just returned from a vacation at Carlsbad Caverns in New Mexico, where he witnessed millions of bats. Most people seeing this spectacle would think, wow, nature is amazing. Adams thought, could these little guys carry bombs? This is classic American innovation thinking. See anything and immediately wonder how to weaponize it. Adams sat there watching thousands of bats streaming out of the cave and suddenly had his eureka moment. What if we strapped a tiny bomb to each bat? A normal person might dismiss this as drunken rambling, but Adams was serious. He started researching bat behavior and discovered these little creatures had several perfect characteristics. They could carry more than their own body weight. They sought out dark, cramped spaces to roost, like building attics, and they could fly to places humans couldn't easily reach. In Adams' mind, bats were nature's gift of the perfect biological weapon. He even gave the plan a code name: Project X-Ray, later renamed Project Adams. This guy basically wanted to turn Batman into reality. Except Batman became a bat terrorist. You'd think the military would laugh Adams out of the room. But remember, this was 1942. America had just been sucker punched, and the whole country was in, we need any weapon that can beat the enemy mode. Adams wrote a detailed proposal explaining his bat bomb plan. This proposal eventually reached the White House, and this is real, President Roosevelt personally reviewed the plan. FDR's reaction wasn't, this man is insane, but rather, this idea is interesting, let's give it a shot. The president wrote a note on the proposal: this man is not a nut. It sounds like a perfectly wild idea, but is worth looking into. Imagine the President of the United States writing worth looking into on a proposal about training bats as bombs. That is the level of wartime desperation we're talking about. The military immediately greenlit the project, codenamed Project Adams. They allocated a $2 million budget. Remember, this is 1940s money, and assembled a team including chemists, biologists, engineers, and military experts. The basic concept was this: create thousands of containers filled with incendiary bombs, each container holding 1,000 bats. Planes would drop these containers over Japanese cities. The containers would open midair, releasing bats carrying tiny incendiary devices. The bats would fly into buildings to roost, timers would detonate the incendiary bombs, and entire cities would be engulfed in flames. In theory, it sounded perfect. In practice, well, let's keep going. The military handed this project to the National Defense Research Committee, and these people started seriously studying how to turn bats into flying bombs. Their first problem: what kind of bats to use after extensive research. I bet this was the weirdest research project in history. Scientists selected the Mexican free-tailed bat. These bats were small but strong, could carry loads heavier than their body weight, and existed in massive numbers. Basically, they were the special forces of the bat world. Next problem: how do you strap bombs to bats? This sounds like an absurd engineering challenge, but the scientists were dead serious. They designed a tiny incendiary device weighing only 17 grams. Attached to the bat's chest with a small clip. The incendiary device itself was a miniature chemical bomb filled with napalm. It had a timer that could be set to detonate after 23 minutes. The theory was that bats would find a comfortable roosting spot within that time, and then, boom, to test this system. The military established a secret base in New Mexico. They started capturing thousands of bats and attempting to train them to carry these little bombs. Picture this scene: a bunch of serious military scientists in white coats carefully strapping bombs to bats. Initial tests looked promising. Bats could indeed fly while carrying these devices, and they would seek out dark places to roost, just as expected. Scientists started believing this crazy plan might actually work, but like all plans that seemed too good to be true, reality was about to give them a brutal lesson. In May 1943, the military decided to conduct the first large-scale test. The location was Carlsbad Army Airfield in New Mexico. This was supposed to be a controlled test proving the bat bomb system could work effectively. The test plan was simple: release a batch of bats carrying incendiary bombs, see where they flew, then observe the burning effects. Scientists built some structures mimicking Japanese buildings, expecting bats to fly in and roost, but nobody considered one crucial issue. Bats can't read maps. They don't know which buildings are enemy targets and which are friendly facilities. The test began. Hundreds of bats carrying incendiary bombs were released into the air. Scientists watched excitedly, waiting to see them fly toward the target buildings. Then disaster struck. Some bats did fly toward the target buildings, but more bats flew toward other base structures, including hangars, officers' quarters, and the command center. After 23 minutes, the timers started detonating. Suddenly, the entire military base began catching fire. Hangars were burning. Barracks were burning. Even a general's car got torched. Fire crews frantically tried to extinguish the flames while scientists watched in horror as their secret weapon burned their own base to the ground. The most ironic part: this test actually proved the bat bomb system was highly effective. They just got the target wrong. The bats successfully found roosting spots. The incendiary bombs successfully started fires, and the whole system worked as designed. The only problem was that what got burned was the US military's own base. You might think this catastrophic test would make the military immediately cancel the project, but you underestimate the stubbornness of military bureaucracy. Instead, their reaction was, well, the system does work. We just need better control over bat flight direction. Not only was the project not canceled, it got more funding. The military transferred the project to the Navy, who renamed it Project X-Ray. They established new testing facilities in Utah. Determined to solve the bat navigation problem, Navy scientists began studying how to control bat flight paths. They tried various methods, training bats, using pheromones for guidance, even considering minor surgery on bats to alter their behavior patterns. Imagine these meeting scenarios. All right, gentlemen, we need to discuss how to make bats only attack enemy buildings. Any suggestions? Could we show them photos of Japanese architecture? Bats don't look at photos, Lieutenant Smith. Then we teach them to recognize Japanese characters. Bats can't read Captain Johnson. After months of intensive research, scientists realized a fundamental problem. You cannot train bats to distinguish between friendly and enemy buildings. Bats are just looking for suitable roosting spots. They don't care about political allegiances, but the project continued. By 1944, the military had spent over $2 million on this project, equivalent to $30 million today. They built specialized bat breeding facilities, hired dozens of scientists, and even developed specialized bat transport containers. In 1944, while scientists were still struggling with the how to make bats obedient problem, another secret project was making breakthrough progress. This project was called the Manhattan Project, and its goal was to create atomic bombs. Atomic bomb project scientists didn't have bat navigation problems. They didn't need to train small animals, didn't need to worry about animal welfare, and didn't need to explain why their weapon would attack their own bases. They just needed to build a bomb that could destroy entire cities. By late 1944, it was clear that atomic bombs would be ready sooner than bat bombs, and with much greater destructive power. The military began reassessing the value of the bat project. Project supporters tried to defend bat bombs. They pointed out that bat bombs could cause more precise destruction, wouldn't produce radioactive contamination, and cost less. But these arguments seemed pale compared to the massive power of atomic weapons. In 1944, the Marine Corps took over the project, renaming it Project X-Ray. They conducted final tests, trying to prove bat bombs still had value. The final tests were conducted in California using a replica of an abandoned Japanese village. This test was relatively successful. Bats did burn down target buildings without torching us facilities. Scientists excitedly reported that bat bombs could cause more fires than conventional bombs. But it was too late. In August 1945, the US dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and Japan surrendered. The Bat Bomb Project officially became history. In August 1945, with Japan's surrender, the Bat Bomb Project was officially canceled. After 3 years of development, spending $2 million and employing dozens of scientists, the project's greatest achievement was burning down a U.S. military base and proving that bats could indeed carry bombs. The project's official report tried to make excuses for this failure. The report claimed that with more time and funding, bat bombs might have become effective weapons. But everyone knew the truth. This project was a crazy idea from the start. Lytle Adams, the project's originator, later insisted in his memoirs that bat bombs were a good idea, just poorly timed. He claimed that if the project had continued, it might have saved thousands of American soldiers' lives by eliminating the need to invade Japan proper. But historians pointed out the project's fundamental flaws. Even if bat bombs worked perfectly as designed, the destruction they caused would be far less effective than conventional bombing, let alone compared to atomic bombs. The entire project was based on a romanticized idea that nature could be weaponized to serve human purposes. The thousands of bats used in the project were released back into the wild, probably the only winners in this entire crazy experiment. These little creatures unwittingly participated in one of the strangest military experiments in human history, then returned to normal bat life. The Bat Bomb Project became a classic case in military history, illustrating how wartime desperation can lead to absurd decisions. This project embodied several important historical lessons. First, it showed how wartime psychology can affect rational judgment. In the anger and desperation following Pearl Harbor, even the most ridiculous ideas could receive serious consideration. Proposals that would be immediately rejected under normal circumstances might get presidential approval and millions in funding during wartime. Second, the project demonstrated the strange results that can occur when science combines with military objectives. Some of the world's smartest scientists spent 3 years studying how to train bats to carry bombs, which is itself a perfect combination of human innovative capacity and absurdity. Third, the Bat Bomb Project illustrated the unpredictability of technological development. While scientists were still struggling with bat navigation problems, other scientists were already building weapons that could destroy entire cities. Sometimes the most complex solutions get replaced by simpler, though more terrifying alternatives. Finally, this project reminds us that even the most absurd ideas might contain some valuable elements. While bat bombs themselves were failures, some technologies developed during the project were later used for other military and civilian applications. Although the Bat Bomb Project failed, it left a unique legacy in military and scientific history. This project represented an extreme manifestation of human innovative spirit. Even the most absurd ideas had people willing to seriously attempt them. The project's failure also drove improvements in military development processes. Modern weapons development projects have stricter feasibility studies, risk assessments, and phased reviews. This is partly to avoid repeating resource waste, like the Bat Bomb Project. From an animal rights perspective, this project is also an important historical case. Thousands of bats were used in military experiments, and while most were eventually released, this project sparked ethical discussions about using animals in military research. Interestingly, modern militaries do use some similar concepts, just with machines instead of animals. Drones, missiles, and other autonomous weapon systems somewhat realize the original vision of the Bat Bomb Project: small, precise weapons that can reach difficult targets. The Bat Bomb Project also became a symbol of innovative thinking. While this specific idea failed, it represented the spirit of thinking outside the box. Sometimes the craziest ideas might contain breakthrough insights, even if execution fails. The Bat Bomb Project story reminds us that history is full of seemingly absurd but genuinely occurring events. A dentist's crazy idea got presidential approval, cost millions of dollars, employed top scientists, and ultimately achieved burning down their own military base. This project embodied wartime America's innovative spirit and desperate psychology. Facing a powerful enemy, America was willing to try any potentially effective weapon, no matter how unusual. While bat bombs failed, this "let's try anything" attitude ultimately helped America win the war. Lytle Adams might not have changed the war's course, but he created one of the strangest and most memorable projects in military history. Whenever someone says, "This idea is too crazy, it'll never work," we can remind them. Someone once seriously tried to train bats to carry bombs, and almost succeeded. The Bat Bomb Project proves that on the grand stage of human history, truth is often stranger than fiction. Sometimes the best stories are those absurd events that actually happened. Next time you see bats flying in the night sky, remember they once almost became the US military secret weapon. Fortunately for both bats and us military bases, this crazy experiment was ultimately replaced by more conventional weapons of mass destruction. This is the complete story of the Bat Bomb Project, a legend about innovation, desperation, science, and pure absurdity. It reminds us that even in the most serious situations, humans can still come up with the most unthinkable solutions. If you enjoyed this story about the strangest project in military history, don't forget to subscribe for more crazy historical events.